is specifically with your mission with ID. I know a big part of that, I guess the sole part of it, is building up those missionary disciples. Is that something that you believe like every Catholic is called to be a leader? Or do you think that's like a specific call for certain people?
Probably make a little distinction. I think everyone is called to be a missionary disciple, in the sense of everyone is called to, by nature of our baptism. Second Vatican Council tells us we have two calls on our life: the universal call to holiness and the universal call to mission. That's not my idea. That's what the church teaches. The universal call to holiness, the great commandment: you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Fundamentally, we're called to grow and become Jesus. Thomas Aquinas, God became man so that we could become God. I don't even know what he means by that, but that's awesome, right? Holiness. So the virtue and the who Jesus is in his holiness becomes ours through the power of the Holy Spirit. And then we are also called to go make disciples. The thing is, though, I don't believe we're all called to make disciples in the exact same way.
Sure.
As St. Paul talks about, I think it's in Corinthians, where he's like, we're not all hands, we're not all feet, we're not all mouths, we all have, he says, to each is given a portion of the Spirit, he says in Corinthians, but not the same portion. So some prophesy, some, he lists a whole bunch of different charisms and gifts that each of us, through our baptism and confirmation, have been equipped to play our role, to be part of the community that is on mission together. And too often we think of mission as an individual sport. It's like tennis, right? Like every time, like I have to hit the ball back every time. Like every time somebody asks a question, somebody coming to faith is entirely on me. Right? Which is not the case. It's it's better to think of it as football or basketball, where we all have a role to play. Not the same role, not even this. I mean, some of us are just in the trenches blocking, some get to be the quarterback. Like how that plays out is the Spirit's decision. Our job is to cooperate with that. So fundamentally, I believe all of us as disciples, and missionary disciples, even just kind of a redundant. To be a disciple is to be on mission. We're just emphasizing a particular part that seems to have been lost. In terms of leadership, I do believe that everyone is a leader in some regard, even if they're just leading themselves. Because one of the definitions of leadership is helping people or yourself get from here to there. Where am I right now? Where do I need to get to? And how do I make that journey, right? And so everybody is at the very least, leading themselves and in cooperation with the Holy Spirit in that regard. And then clearly, some other people have been both given the gifts and the opportunities and the doorways to lead in, I don't want to say more significant ways, but in a diversity of ways that is more of the traditional understanding of leadership that we would talk about. I'm the head of this group. I'm the boss of the company. But everybody, I don't know if I've ever met anyone that doesn't have some avenue to express leadership in some regard. And I've come to the conclusion that in order for disciples to be made, we need Spirit-filled leaders. That's a necessary thing for environments to be created where people can become disciples. When I look at like Jesus's model of evangelization or whatever, it was like, he did a lot of things. He preached a lot. He healed a lot of people. That's all very true. But his main leave behind, if you will, was a bunch of men and women who had learned how to be him. And then through Pentecost, were actually empowered to do it. And then everywhere they went, they did the same thing. They taught people how to live like Jesus, and then they prayed with them to be filled with the power of the Holy Spirit. And that is what the church is doing. And the sacraments are all part of this framework, this beautiful supernatural framework to help us become Jesus and to recreate him in others. And we identifying Spirit-filled leadership as like a particular role within that framework that seems to be necessary in order for that to happen.